to a near stop. That's a deceleration so extreme it hits nearly 6G, enough force to make it impossible for most normal people to keep their head up. They're not just powerful, they can reach temperatures over 1000 degrees Celsius, about as hot as molten lava. Plus, the driver has to push down on the brake pedal with 180 kilograms of force. Imagine trying to lift a full-size refrigerator with one leg. That's about how much force an F1 driver applies to the brake pedal. So how do the brakes cope with such intense forces? And how does the entire braking system work? Well, to find out, I went behind the scenes with the Alpine F1 team to uncover the cutting edge tech behind modern Formula 1 braking systems. So why do brakes matter so much in Formula 1? Why do teams pour millions into perfecting them? Well, it's all about lap time. Let's take two cars, both flying down a straight at 200 miles per hour. The first car approaches a corner and hits the brakes 100 meters before the turn, slowing to 35 miles per hour at the apex. Now, let's take a look at the second car. It's also going 200 miles per hour, but this one brakes later, at just 90 meters before the same corner. It still slows down to 35 miles per hour at the apex, but by braking 10 meters later, it's now 0.078 of a second faster. That's almost a tenth of a second. And that might seem small, but in Formula 1, teams spend millions trying to shave off just 1/10 of a second per lap. Alright, so let's take a look at the incredible engineering behind the F1 braking system. This is Alex Stevens, the sub-assembly team leader at Alpine F1, and he's walking me through all of these parts. Before we jump in, it's important to know that everything we're looking at comes from a modern Formula 1 car, with most of it coming from the Alpine RS20B, their 2020 car that carried over into 2021.
So this is predominantly RS20B, so 2020 car that carried over to 2021. One or two of the parts are a little bit older, but most of what you see is 2020 model year.
So let's start right at the beginning, with the brake pedal.
The driver hits that with about 3 times their own weight. So it's about 180 kilos, 160, 180 kilos that this thing sees, which is pretty mad considering how much it weighs.
This pedal is designed and manufactured in-house at Alpine. It's made from a single piece of carbon fibre to keep it lightweight but incredibly strong.
And the first thing that stands out to me is just how big that brake pedal is. Is this for Ocon? Got big feet, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. So each of the pedals are made to the driver's feet. If you've got a driver with larger feet, you have a larger pedal.
Got you.
And yeah, Esteban has got big feet, so he has a big pedal. Simple as that. But they do actually scan them, and then we actually make and cut the pad to suit the driver.
It's paired with a simple aluminium clevis for the pivot position that bolts onto the bottom of the tub, and a titanium clevis at the back to connect it to the master cylinder. And that's all. Now, the brake pedal may look simple, but it's only one part of a much more complex system. Once the driver presses the pedal, that force is transferred into the master cylinder, where it's converted into the hydraulic pressure that powers the brakes.
This pedal then connects to the brake master cylinder here. We have an eyelet unit that, again, depending on the driver and how tall or short they are, that eyelet changes because the tub doesn't change driver to driver. We often swap the chassis. The master cylinder doesn't change driver to driver, but the eyelet does.
In Formula 1, you're not adjusting the driver's seating position like in a road car. Instead, the steering wheel and pedals are moved to suit the driver, which then allows the driver's weight to be kept centrally located. And the pedal itself is tuned to the driver's preference, depending on how heavy they want it to feel.
It's a big heavy spring to push. Esteban likes a really heavy spring. He doesn't like a light feeling one.
Okay.
Esteban particularly likes really hard and instant without any travel.
That spring sits here, resisting the movement of the shaft going into the master cylinder. It acts as a kind of tuner, but the real force, the feeling of a heavy pedal, comes from the hydraulic pressure. And this feeling on the brake pedal is critical for drivers, because it allows them to be more confident when they're braking late. And also they can control the brake pressure better, meaning they'll lock up less.
They say that the heavier that is, the more feedback and feel they get, so that's why they like that spring.
So, how does a master cylinder actually work? Well, in a modern Formula 1 car, things are a bit more sophisticated than the older systems, which used to have separate cylinders for the front and rear systems. The bias used to be controlled by a mechanical pivot point that shifted, giving more leverage to either the front or rear brake system. This would change the braking balance, more pressure on the front or more on the rear, depending on what the driver wanted. However, modern Formula 1 cars use a tandem